Hey, this is Devon with the Ski Monster, and today we're going to talk about all things goggles. If you have tried to purchase goggles in the last couple years, one of the new technologies you've probably seen is that most goggles come with interchangeable lenses. If you want to know why you would need an interchangeable lens, it's to totally help you see better based on the conditions. For example, if you were to have a goggle with a darker lens, that's going to act like a sunglass. So it's going to work to help protect you from the sun or particularly bright above tree line conditions such as glacier skiing, alp skiing, skiing out in a bowl out west, or just the top of the mountain. If you tend to find that when that sun goes down or it starts to snow or there's a little bit of a cloud cover and it becomes harder to see and harder to kind of differentiate between the cat tracks or the grooves in the snow, it might be time for your second lens. So for example, most second lenses are going to be a much lighter look. They're going to be lighter tints. Each brand's a little bit different, but most of them are going to be a light pink or a light yellow to help you kind of see those grooves a little bit easier. So I'm going to go through how to change out these lenses on every goggle that we carry, just to show you how easy or difficult it is for each model. The first goggle we're going to talk about is the Juro Contact. This is a slightly bigger frame, so it's going to be a bigger goggle. It's also one of the easiest lenses to change in the Giro collection. All it is a little button at the top. You push that down, it releases the lock, bend the frame to release the lens, and pull it out. There are magnets on the lens that hold it in place. So when you're doing your spare lens, you're just going to line up those magnets, make sure that button pushes down to lock again, and you're locked and loaded. One thing to know about this goggle, you can change it directly on your face or off of your helmet, but you don't want to change it on the helmet because the frame will bend and then the lens will not lock in place correctly. So either take it off or do it right on your face. The next goggle we're going to talk about is the Contour. So we have the Contour goggle and the Contour RS. The only changes between this, slightly smaller frame on the RS than the Contour. This goggle is known for having one of the largest extended views, meaning you can see out of the peripherals really wide on each side. To change this lens, it's super easy. There's a groove right here. Just stick your fingers in there and pop it out. Little 4 grommets here are where they lock back in place, and the grommets on the back of the lens line up with each of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. The RS changes exactly the same way. The next goggle is the Access and the Ella goggle. Access and Ella are the same thing. The Ella is just the women's version, meaning it'll have slightly different colors, and it has this nice soft fleece on the inside. This is a medium-sized frame, a little smaller than the Contour and the Contact. However, this changes exactly the same as the Contour. So the groove is back in here. Get your fingers in there, pop it off. Magnets are here to line up. 4 grommets, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple. The next goggles we'll talk about are the Smith IO collection. These come in 3 sizes. The IO XL is the biggest one. The IO is going to be the medium-sized one. And then the IOS will be the smallest frame. So to change this, all 3 sizes change exactly the same. If you flip the strap over, you'll see there's a little button on the back. There's one on each side. Simply just push this button and pull the lens out, and it will release. There are magnets here to line up as well. If you put it back on, I like to start on the left and kind of roll it. So there's a little hook here. Roll it in, let the magnets line up, release that button to lock it in place, and you just want to make sure both sides are locked. That's how you change the IO. The next goggle we're going to talk about is the 4D Mag from Smith. This is probably one of the more popular goggles lately. It has that nice fishbowl lens, which means it wraps down below, giving you a little bit more peripheral view on the goggle. The 4D regular is going to be kind of the larger size. It's a little bit closer to an IO XL, so it is a pretty big frame, whereas the 4DS is going to be the smaller size. To change this goggle, there are 2 locks on each side. 1, 2. You want to make sure both of those are done, and then you just kind of bend the lens back and release it. Magnets on this to line back up. Make sure both edges are clicked in, and then you can lock that back in place. And that's how you change the 4D. Next goggle we're going to talk about is the Smith Squad Mag. This is a cylindrical frame, meaning it is going in a shape of a tube as opposed to a spherical like the IO, which goes in the shape of almost like your eyeball or a sphere in both directions. So for the Squad, the way you would change this lens, behind the strap is a lock. Unlock that on each side, just like the 4D, except on the back of the goggle. Bend the frame, release the lens. Again, magnets here, line them back up. Make sure it gets into each position on the left and right and lock it in place. And that is how you change the Squad. The next goggle we're going to talk about is Anon. Anon has a number of goggles all in the M series. So there's an M5, M5S, M4, M4S, M3, and M2, and then a women's collection for a WM3, WM2, WM1. Those are mostly relation to frame sizes. So the smaller the number, the smaller the frame. For changing Anon, arguably the easiest goggle out there to change, you just bend the frame back and the entire magnet system, you can see there's a number of magnets on this lens holding it in place. It's just a magnetic lineup. No locks, no buttons, super, super simple. Anon tends to have a few different options with cylindrical and toric lenses or spherical lenses. They come in both, so you can kind of check out what you prefer. And again, all the frames of all the M collection change exactly the same just by bending them. If you are someone that wears your glasses underneath your goggles, there are a few options for you. There are some goggles that are called OTG, which means over the glass, and they are designed with features to be worn over glasses. One, you'll notice it's a much deeper depth here so that it's not pushing your lenses against your face. The second is that they've removed all of the plastic along here so that your arm is not being pushed into your side of your head, so that's a nice relief. And it's a deeper frame overall so that everything can fit comfortably in there. If you want to have a few more options, you can do an OTC, which is a regular goggle that is OTC, meaning over the glass compatible. This doesn't have as much depth generally to it, and it's not specifically designed for over the glass, but it does have some features built in, like the removal of that plastic around the arms to relieve that pressure. The best thing you can do is make sure you bring your glasses in when you go try your goggles on. You want to make sure that they fit over comfortably and they're not pushing too far into your face. If you do prefer the OTG fit, we do recommend the Giro Index or the Smith Sequence. And if you want to have a little bit more option with changeable lenses and more colors, you can go with any of the OTC models, which are offered by all brands. If your goggles do come with two lenses, you now want to make sure you're protecting both as you store them. Most of the goggles will come with a sleeve. The double lens ones will often have a sleeve that has two on the inside of it. So one is for your spare lens and one is for the goggle. So you just want to make sure that when you pack these, you pack them separately so that they don't ever rub together. The last important piece about picking out your goggles is making sure they're compatible with your helmet. We're going to try to always avoid having a huge gap in between the actual goggle and the helmet, although you do need to have a little bit of air because that vent needs to be able to vent from the top of the goggle to prevent fogging. So you don't ever want to block the top of your goggle. If you get snow on there, you want to clear it off. And you don't want to have that so pinched tight that it can't breathe at all. But you also don't want to have a huge gap because now you're going to expose your forehead and it's just going to be very cold. So they work best when they work very closely together. The other thing to look for on your helmet is that this little space here, you want to try to get the frame as close to the edge of your helmet as possible. A smaller goggle is always going to have a little bit bigger gap, but you just don't want to have a huge one or else you're going to feel really cold right on the sides of your head. So that is how we want our helmets and goggles to lock up correctly together. So when you're ready to make your final decision about goggles, the few things you want to remember are how easily you want to be able to change your lens, the size of the frame and how well it fits your face, and also how it locks up with your helmet, making sure you have as few gaps as possible between that helmet and goggle. If you have any other questions, you can give us a call, live chat with our customer service team, or if you're local to Boston, make an appointment and come see us at the Ski Monster.